This episode is part of a series where I take already published memoir and break down what works about it and why, and what doesn't work and why. I have found that when I am teaching my memoir method concepts to writers, they benefit from seeing how these principles play out in memoir that you can find at the bookstore. This month, I'm looking at the self-published memoir, The Light That Shines Through, One Woman's Journey of Healing and Stepping into Her Power by Shawna Thibodeau. You are listening to the Memoir Method podcast, the place for writers, readers, and anyone who appreciates the collective power of our stories. In this podcast, we explore the impact of memoir alongside an examination of writing techniques and strategies used in the genre. Whether you are a writer looking for inspiration and guidance or a passionate reader seeking meaningful connections through shared experiences, the Memoir Method podcast is your go-to conversation spot. I'm your host, Charlotte, editor, writer, and the heart behind Charlotte Writes. Let's get started. The memoir that we are looking at this month is one that I found through a mindset coach that I follow online, and I wanted to bring it to this series because she's self-published. And I have a whole part of my Memoir Method curriculum that is all about different publishing routes, and an entire module actually in the program dedicated to self-publishing. The way that the publishing ecosystem works right now has made self-publishing not only more accessible, but also a great option for writers who want to get their book directly into the hands of readers without having to jump through the hoops of traditional publishing or wait on a traditional publishing timeline. I will talk more about what I have observed from Shawna's self-publishing launch more in the second part of this series next week. I just wanted to highlight what drew me to this book, especially for this audience, for you you're writing your memoir and you're probably thinking about different ways that you want to publish. So I wanted to bring another self-published memoir into the podcast. Once again, we are examining the memoir, The Light That Shines Through by Shawna Thibodeau. She is based in Canada, and this is her first book. And her book was published back in July of this year of 2025. So the subtitle of her memoir really says exactly what angle the author is using. One woman's journey of healing and stepping into her power. What Shawna walks us through in her memoir is her own experience with mental health and how she learned to tap into holistic modalities for managing her mental health and what else that journey unlocked for her in her life, the different opportunities that it gave her. She covers some of her childhood and through to her present day, but it's pulled through a very specific perspective. So I've talked a little bit about how memoir is not autobiography. And autobiography, as a reminder, is just kind of the facts of what happened from when you were born up until present day. And it's more geared to communicate information. And a memoir is crafted more to communicate a message and an experience. So I will often hesitate when a writer wants to start from their childhood. But Shawna does this really well because she covers her childhood. She does do this chronologically for the most part. In the next episode, I'll actually get into something I thought she did really well narratively. But she basically starts at her childhood and goes through to her present day, but it's not an autobiography because she pulls it through this focus, through mental health. So she doesn't tell the reader about every school she went to, every holiday, every best friend, because again, this is not an autobiography. Rather, she takes her focus, this angle, and uses that as a filter for what she shares from her childhood. Everything that serves the focus that fits into this more narrow angle, that is what she pulls through from her childhood. So it does not even a little bit feel like an autobiography. It always feels like this memoir with this very specific way of coming at her life. For Shawna's reader, I see her reader primarily as a mirror reader. So someone who has some overlap in that lived experience, someone who is reading this story and thinks, oh my gosh, me too. Shawna is an entrepreneur. She runs a business. And so I also suspect that her ideal client and her ideal reader are more likely than not the same person. I'll touch on that aspect again in the second part of this series when I talk about kind of what I have observed from this self-publishing launch, because she's using her memoir as a way to kind of find more people to help through her business. So I'll talk about that more later, but her ideal reader and her ideal client are probably the same person. This is likely someone who has struggled with mental health issues and has perhaps tried more conventional ways to treat it, medication, talk therapy, etc. Her reader is someone who will read her story and feel hope that there are multiple ways to manage mental health. The reader who will have the best experience with this memoir is one who is already open to more holistic modalities. Shawna talks about tapping, meditation, EMDR, a lot of different ways of processing emotion and trauma. So the reader, for her ideal reader for this book, is someone who's already open to that. Something that I liked about this memoir, actually, is that the author does not disparage traditional medicine. In fact, she worked as a nurse for many years, and she shares about her own experiences trying out different forms of Western medicine to treat her depression. So she's not just out here, being super polarizing. She does a really good job of balancing that tone. So even though her work and her story does lean more into the holistic realm, she is careful not to alienate or discount pharmaceuticals or traditional talk therapy. And I was really impressed with how she walked that line. Shawna's message is very invitational. If I had to boil it down to a couple sentences, it would be something like this. Your mind has incredible power, and healing can take many forms and use many modalities. You can trust yourself and your intuition as you heal. The scenes that she writes and the stories that she shares really amplify how she tunes into and acts on her intuition. That's a major thread that she pulls through the story, is being able to tune into what her intuition is saying, what her body is telling her, and then acting on it. So she leans deeply into her inner knowing as a woman and a wellness practitioner, making it easy for the reader to bridge Shawna's experience with their own. So what I expect Shawna wants the reader to be thinking is, if she can trust herself, then maybe I can trust myself too. So that's the foundation that I picked out from The Light That Shines Through. And in part 2, I will go into how she uses narrative techniques and storytelling to amplify her message. And also I will go into a brief analysis, just observations of mine, of how she leveraged self-publishing and how she launched in a way that felt very authoritative and invitational. So in this episode, and in every memoir that I examine through this series, I do pick apart the foundation of the story. If this is something that you want to work through with your own memoir manuscript, then you will want to join the winter cohort of the Memoir Method program. I will link to that in the show notes. And you can always DM me on Instagram at the.memoir.coach or email me directly at hello@bookishedits.com to talk about the best ways that I can support you. Apart from that, I will see you on Friday for our regularly scheduled episode. See you then. You've just listened to an episode of the Memoir Method podcast. The Memoir Method podcast is presented by Charlotte Writes. If you liked what you heard, the best way to support the show is to subscribe through your preferred podcast player. And if you're feeling especially inspired, I'd love it if you left a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Leaving a review really does help other readers and writers like yourself find the show. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find me on my website at charlottewrites.co or on Instagram at charlottejanewrites. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time. And remember that you have a story that matters.